Merton and I'm an aeromodeller and an engineer. Join me on a fascinating journey where I show you some of the techniques used in scale aeromodelling. Hello again modellers, and welcome back to the workshop. We're going to start with a bit of a... it's really frustrating and very annoying. In the last video you will have seen the fin and rudder mounted on the fuselage above the tailplane. In that shot, when I looked at it, I thought, how the heck am I going to build up the gap between the tailplane and the rudder? Because that looks too big. And it is. It's 5mm too big. And that's just going to stand out like a sore thumb. So what I've got to do, measuring things and comparing them to my 3-view, and it harps back again to my comment, build a model to your own 3-view. Don't try and adapt somebody else's plan. And the fin, as Jerry's drawn it, fits beautifully, and this triangular T-piece, or whatever you want to call it, fits lovely under the sheeting, and it looks really good. But alas, the distance from the bottom of the rudder to the tailplane is 5mm too much. So what I've got to do is I've got to lower the fin by 5mm. Now that means cutting the entire chunk off the bottom of the fin. That's possibly going to expose the rib. It may even actually obliterate the rib and it not be there anymore. I don't know. It's certainly going to obliterate all of that nice mounting ply just there. So rather disappointing, but I'm going to cut that 5mm shorter and we'll see what carnage we've got left after that. And as suspected, I've gone through the rib that was on the base. It's all very thin now. Fortunately, this area here is all solid because I've packed it out from inside. So what I may have to do is actually try and open this up and let in a new rib. Very unfortunate, but it can't be so wrong that I wouldn't be happy. So I'll try and tidy this up a little bit. After that aggressive bit of cutting, we now have access to the inside of the fin. So the good thing is all the joints inside are nice, which is excellent. What I've done is I've got another V1. I don't know what happened, but Bob Holman cut 2 sets of ribs for the fin. I guess he thought it was the tailplane. But anyway, I've got 2 sets. So I have another V1. So what I've done is I've cut the tang off the end and I've narrowed it at the front because obviously it's getting thinner now. So if we just simply try that in there, let's see how well that fits. Actually, there's a little tiny bit of wood there and glue. Just need to remove. So somebody said in the comments some time ago, we like your videos, which is very nice, thank you very much. We like your videos because you show the blunders and how you dig yourself out of a hole. Well, which is true, and that is part of modelling, is figuring out how to get out of a situation. However, I would say that this one's not entirely my making. It's because the model's not accurate. But I suppose you could say the model is accurate to how Jerry wanted it. So who's wrong, me or Jerry? Who knows? I'm the fool because I'm trying to make a silk purse, not of a sow's ear, that's a bit unfair, but trying to make a scale model from a sport model. As you can see, that fits quite nicely. So I think that's going to be the solution. I've tried this on the model and I needed 13.2 millimeters clearance between the bottom of the rudder and the tailplane, and I've now got 13. So I'm really happy with that. So it does mean that we're back to that one problem that I really didn't want right at the beginning, and that was that there's very little mechanical strength other than the bond between this and the 1/8 sheeting. You will recall I showed how I drilled a hole and run a carbon rod from the bottom to the top. Well, actually that all went when I started moving the fin forwards. So anyway, that could be the reason that the height has increased, because the fin's gone forward 10 millimeters and the fuselage slopes up. Maybe that's where it's all come from. But if you look at the Jerry Bates drawing, the distance between the bottom of the rudder and the tailplane is oh, excuse me, is much greater than I would want. Right, so I'll glue this in and then we'll be away. think sanity is restored once again. The fin actually fits the fuselage a lot better than it did, and the distance now is 13.5 millimeters from the rudder to the tailplane at the forward leading edge part of the rudder. So everything else is the same, so that's good. That rib fitted in quite nicely at the bottom. I'm still a little bit nervous that I've not really got a terribly strong mechanical joint holding the fin on. It's simply that 1/8 sheeting is doing all the work. I may try and fill in that section at the rear where the sheeting is clearer of the bulkhead and actually put some ply or at least some firm 1/8 in there just to give it a bit more rigidity. Anyway, there you go. I'm not sure what we're doing next. I might move on to the front sheeting, or I might build the elevators. I don't know. So as you can see here, once the floor in my workshop starts stabilizing and everything's level again, and everything moves back to the center, you can see with the aid of that little bit of thread, I've managed to pull the rudder over very slightly so it's all in line. You'll see the tailplane still all in line as well, so we're good to go. Now you saw that I've just mixed an epoxy slurry with colloidal silica and resin. What I'm going to try and do once this is set and it's fully hard is I'm going to try and drill through from the bottom of the fuselage through those holes that I had previously, and drill right through into the fin, and then I'll cover that whole rod with some epoxy and slide it back in. That might give us a little bit more support. We'll just have to see. I'm just going to need a very long drill to do it. Okay, so more when this dries, and I'll see you then. Well, welcome back. The epoxy is not solid. It won't be solid for another probably 24 hours. It's solid enough. But it goes rock hard over the next day or so. So if you remember, this was the carbon rod that I was going to pass through from underneath, and the two holes in the quarter square section, upper and lower and longer on, are still there. So if with a bit of careful prodding, you can actually find the other hole. And if I drilled with this, I would get somewhere up in the fin, but not very far. So what I'm going to do, I've got another piece of this 3mm carbon rod, and what I'm going to do, it might not work, but we're going to try it anyway. Let's find a needle file. I'm going to use one of these little permagrip files, and just use the sharp point of it just to make a bit of a spike. This isn't actually carbon rod, this is carbon tube. Okay, it's the same diameter, but for what I'm going to do, it's not really an issue. And all I'm trying to do is make it a little bit aggressive on the tip. It might not work, it might work. So you probably cannot see that, but let me put my hand behind it. I've cut little notches in it to just sort of make saw teeth, as it were. So the next thing we're going to need is possibly a drill bit, possibly a drill, but we might be able to do it with just fingers. So we'll give it a go. So the hardest bit is going to be feeding that through and finding a hole in the quarter. There's the quarter, but I've now got to find the hole in it. And there it is. So what I've done now is I've gone through the quarter square stock that is on the bottom underneath the sheeting, and there's a similar piece running along the top. So now this hole, or this carbon tube with a little sharpened end on it, is sitting in those two quarter holes, so I know it's straight. So all I'm going to do is twist it, see if I can cut my way through there. I've cut my way through the bottom rib of the fin. I'm trying to remember where any of these were ply. No, they were all balsa. There, we've gone through another one. Now I could stop at that. That means I've gone through 1, 2. Let's try and go through a third. I could try and see if we can actually get through the leading edge of the fin, which would be lovely. Ooh, let's throw another one. I'm going to put my hand down here just so I can feel any bulging at all on the sheeting, because I don't want to go through the sheeting. So if it's not quite true and square, it'll come through in the wrong place, and I don't want that. The leading edge of the fin is actually quite thick. So if this is actually cutting into the fin, leading edge, then terrific. I can't feel anything. I'm going to put the drill on it because this is hurting my fingers. I'll turn it around a little bit, hopefully still in shot. Well, would you believe it? Let's take the drill off. Not sure if you can see that, but the carbon tube has come straight through the leading edge of the fin. That could not be better. So all I need to do now is coat that rod in epoxy resin, feed it back through, and the job's really is a good one. Glad of that. The problem's going to be every time it passes through another rib, it's going to wipe the epoxy off. So anyway, that's best I could do. What do you reckon to the chances of it actually being able to thread that through again? Very the top and the bottom, I can add some thin CA and that'll soak down and get the top and the bottom openings. It's the ribs around the middle that aren't going to get coated, I don't think. But it's better than not doing it, shall we say. I feel much happier that this is sitting in there. Although I am very conscious, everything I do like this is adding more weight to the tail end of this model. Right, let's see if we can actually thread that through the holes again. Okay, I'm going to try this another way, going from the other end. As I feared, a lot of the epoxy is coming off. And there we go. I'm just going to take the top off of that. Now it's very important when you're cutting carbon fibre and glass that you don't use one of your better saws. I've got one that is glass only, it says on the side, it's a dull one. I'm going to wipe the epoxy off the tube. I could use the rest of the tube for something else. trying to get some of the epoxy off, because the epoxy is quite hard to sand once it sets. If you've got epoxy on balsa, nice soft balsa surrounded by epoxy, it's very difficult to sand to a true shape. Anyway, we'll get that later. So now, as you can see, we've got a carbon rod running right the way through with epoxy on it, and it would have had a nice snug fit to the bulkheads on the way down. A little bit more loose fit on the quarters, but hopefully we've got them covered. Anyway, it's better than not using the rod. Okay, well, if you've enjoyed the video, please press like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Probably going to be the sheeting.